Alright, we have another amazing chapter of MHA to talk about, and we get to dive a little bit into the dark origins of Shigaraki, or at least Deku coming to the realization of why Shigaraki is the way he is. We kind of scratch the surface a little bit, but what's left to be unraveled, I'm really interested in seeing. And you guys might be coming off of my last review of 416, because, sorry, I've been very late with getting these out, but my job has like tripled my work capacity, so I gotta find time to sleep somewhere in all this, and lately I've just not had time to put out these reviews. Don't worry, they're still going to be coming, but they might just be a little slower than I would like to put them out. But thank you for everyone that's been continuing watching. I've still been getting a lot of support and a lot of likes and subscriptions, so appreciate every single one of you. But let's get into talking about today's chapter. Actually, wait, before that, don't forget to like and subscribe, because though you guys have been showing me support, I still need a long ways to go, so maybe one day I could sleep again. But now, let's get into talking about today's chapter. So we start the chapter with Deku going to town on that new Shigaraki hand cocoon thing that's happening, as the world continues watching, wondering what's going to happen during this battle. Meanwhile, Mei Hatsume's little drone is trying her little best to keep up with this. And we do get to see a close-up of Deku, what it looks like inside the hand cocoon thing, and apparently he looks like he's back to his original state, but also seems like he has some decay lines hitting him, so I don't know if he's been touched in this sequence, but hopefully he hasn't, but I just noticed that while reading, and I don't know if it's going to factor into anything. And he doesn't have the Black Whip tendrils over him like he had in the previous chapters. But it doesn't really matter because he is rocking Shigaraki's inner world right now with a massive blow. And seemingly with that massive blow, he actually transferred most of the quirks all at once, except for Nana for some reason. Because we see inside the world, Nana's looking around and she can't seem to find any of the other vestiges. And she's kind of confused because it appears that she was bounced back during the transfer when no one else was. And she thinks back to what Shigaraki said to her during the war arc, because she is still a contributor to everything that's happened to him, so he hates her just as much. But it doesn't matter because we see Deku right in front of the Shimura household as we pick up from where the last chapter ended. And Deku goes to ring the doorbell as he hears the words, "What good will knowing do?" As he sees, it's a dark version of himself, and it says, "What will it change after knowing about the past?" And it appears that this dark version is actually not a dark Deku, it's Shigaraki speaking through Deku. And Deku's just like, I don't know, but I don't want things to end without knowing, as the dark version of him wants him to die, and Deku being polite is like, sorry for the intrusion. But while Deku's talking, he almost gets hit by a truck, and he's surprised that he's actually seemingly sustained damage on his backpack, but he shouldn't be able to because he's not a physical presence in this world. But Nana quickly chimes in and corrects that because he's a one-for-all user, that he has a physical presence in this dimension, so any damage he sustains here will actually be real. And she tells him that she also wasn't here for the transfer, so I'm assuming that she'll be keeping him company during this trip down memory lane. And though Deku could sustain physical damage here, he's not super worried because the Shigaraki that should be in this memory should be super fragile, so all he needs to do is touch him to reach his core. But little does he know, Shigaraki's memory is a little bit more difficult than that, so he immediately gets attacked by a memory of Stain. And that Stain memory is saying, "That's why you're about to die." As Deku's confused, as the Stain then turns into Redestro, who says, "What burdens do you bear? What do you seek to build?" As the nose of Redestro, which I swear is like the funniest manga panel, turns into Overhaul, and it's like, "Got a plan?" And Deku's like, "No, out of my way," which I'm glad to see Overhaul back, but like, I didn't think this is the way we're gonna see him again. I do hope he shows up in the physical world for the end of the chapter, but I kind of feel like there's a little bit more they could do with his character. But it doesn't matter, because Deku just quickly runs past both of them as he opens the door, and he actually opens the door to seeing the memory of Shigaraki finding the picture of Nana with his father for the first time. And the way this is drawn is so reminiscent of how my dreams work, but that's neither here nor there. As he hears the memories of what Shigaraki's sister said to him, said, "It's a secret, so this is Grandma." And Nana has a bit of a look of shock on her face, but little does she know how much shock she's about to experience. As she sees her granddaughter's face, who kind of looks a lot like Nana, so I think it makes it even sadder, but she goes back to the day that Shigaraki was abused by his father, where he first laid physical hands on him. And she's shocked to see that this is the man her son ended up becoming, which I think I mentioned a few videos ago, but like, this chapter is really sad in seeing the world that she ended up creating inadvertently by trying to be a hero. And Deku, shocked by what he's seeing, tries his best to try to intervene in the situation, but he's being rejected by what it seems to be Shigaraki's final layer of his core. As Nana hears those faithful words that his father said to Shigaraki on those last days of his life. But he says, "That wasn't your grandma in the picture. That was a monster that abandoned her child." And Nana begins to just fall apart hearing this come out the mouth of her son. As Kotaro goes on to say, "Do you really want to know what heroes are? They're people who hurt their families only to keep complete strangers safe." As she just begins to realize that, man, the wound she left on her son, Kotaro, has just spread to Shigaraki, and she said, "I had to defeat All for One and come back," but she's realizing that she failed in her mission, and what ended up happening was even worse than she could ever expect. As she sees Kotaro about to lay hands on Shimura, as Deku's trying his best to break that barrier, and she's realizing the true sadness that she left behind, as she says, "I'm sorry for being such a weak mother." As it seems this burst of sadness was all they needed to be able to break through the barrier holding them back, and it completely obliterates Shigaraki's core. As she grabs her son and says, "I'm sorry for not coming back for you. I'm sorry, it's all Grandma's fault." As she holds Kotaro's hands as they fade into Shigaraki's consciousness. And all that's left is Deku and Shimura, as Deku is now faced with seeing the true origins of the day Shimura became Shigaraki. Now, how will he deal with this was yet to be known, but this is the end of the chapter. And again, another amazing chapter. I am super tempted to give this a 10 out of 10, because I'm not just an action buff. It doesn't need to be like cool action and stuff happening, but I love amazing story beats like this, and this is all I could ever want out of Nana meeting her son and seeing what the truth of her son could be. But there's just one or two or like a few discrepancies I have that keep me from keeping it as a perfect score. And one of the things I gotta mention, because it was brought up like several chapters ago, and I hate to be this guy, but didn't they mention that Banjo had to remain behind so that Deku can continue fighting if all goes to shit? And all of them were transferred all at once in seemingly no real order, which is a little weird, because like, again, it's a cool scene that I love that like this is how it played out, but like that, what was the point of mentioning that? Also, All Might doesn't have a quirk, so how did he transfer his vestige when there's not actually a quirk factor in there? And why didn't they transfer All Might's vestige first if it would have had the same effect as hitting the core, but it wouldn't have actually given him a quirk? And also, how is Deku going to continue fighting now that he's transferred all the quirks? I know he still remains to have the embers of One for All, but he doesn't have much longer, and he's also exerting quite a bit of the power. So will he have the quirk at the end of the day? Maybe Shigaraki or Shimura Tenko will give it back to him, who knows? But I'm not gonna take away from it, because it could play out that way, and I'm not gonna jump to conclusions on that, but I'm just very curious on where they're going with that. And there's still a lot of stuff left open-ended, and it feels like this chapter feels like close to the end of the series. I don't know if maybe there's gonna be another round where maybe Deku and Shigaraki are gonna keep going at it. Maybe he'll eventually get Star and Stripes quirk, who knows? But I'm not sure, because it feels like this can be like maybe 10 chapters left, and there's still a lot left to talk about in the show, like a lot left. Like, we still don't know about Eraserhead. We still haven't seen the reappearance of like a couple of the characters, and again, some of the characters are still fighting, and some of the characters still have like off-screen battles. And there's a lot of things that have been referenced that have seemingly not played out to anything, but I'm gonna hold my tongue on those yet, because again, I've said stuff before in the past, and then it ended up coming true, so maybe those things are still yet to happen, but I am not really sure we're gonna get to see it, because there's like a real big emphasis on this battle right now. And the last thing I'm gonna mention is, though Deku is transferring quirks, he seemingly is putting up like a big fight against Shigaraki, who, yeah, at the beginning, like, he had Deku on the ropes, but it seems very underwhelming that he's just continuously beating his ass, and like, he's not really putting up much of a fight, though he should be like miles more powerful than One for All. But I think with that, maybe Horikoshi kind of wrote himself into a corner by making Shigaraki and All for One just seem way too powerful, because like the feats they've shown so far, realistically no hero should be able to compete against them. So it's kind of crazy that Deku's beating him with like little to no effort, it seems. Well, it's a lot of effort, but it's not as much effort as I think that he should be putting in. But those nitpicks aside, I honestly do really still love the writing that they've done. The art looks amazing, and Deku vs. Shigaraki is still an amazing chapter, an amazing arc that's happening. I just want a little bit more, but that as for this chapter, it was almost perfect. Like, the only thing I really have to take away is just that weird quirk thing that they mentioned that ended up not coming true, but I still think that this is a really solid chapter, and I really want the anime to adopt this very properly. But outside of that, again, still loving this, still love this chapter, still love this manga, still love this series, and I will continue doing so. But that's all I have to say about it for today. Thanks again for watching. Make sure to subscribe because, as I said, the boy has been losing sleep trying to get these edits out, and the faster I can get monetized and stuff, the more I can do. But anyway, that's all I have to say. So you stay safe, my ninjas, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.